So now let's try a little bit of a simpler example here. So we're just going to do an or and an and truth table. So both the same situation, but just a little bit different wording. So suppose you're picking out a new couch and your significant other says, okay, we can get a sectional or something with a chaise. So go ahead, whenever you're doing a truth table, start with your simple statement, which is like what S and C are here. Set up your true-false combinations, right? So these are all the possible pairs that you can have for truth values of two things. Now I want to see if either S or C is true. So I only need one of them to be true. So in the first row, they're both true, so that satisfies. In the second row, one of them is true, but that's okay, that still satisfies. In the third row, again, only one of them is true, but that's still fine. And then in the fourth row, none of them are true. So neither S is true nor C is true. So this is going to be false. So like, for example, let's say you go to the store and, you know, your significant other says, okay, you can get a sectional or something with a chaise. You come home. In the first row, that's like you coming home with both a sectional and a chaise. And technically you're not wrong because you did get either a sectional or a chaise. Your significant other did not say only one. They just said a sectional or a chaise, so you're good there. The other two, I think it's kind of obvious, like you just got one. In the second row, you got a sectional only, and in the third row, you got a chaise only. That's fine. That totally meets the agreement that you had set out. In the fourth row, though, let's say your partner sends you out to get a sectional or a chaise, and you come home with nothing. Obviously, you didn't get a sectional or a chaise, so that's false. In the second example, similar setup, except that the directions are to get a sectional and a chaise. So you still go ahead and you set up your true-false combinations for your simple statements, making sure that you have all possible combinations of true and false for the two items. And now for sectional and a chaise to be true, they both have to be true. But if we're looking at this, there's only one instance in where we have two truths, and that's the first row. So because we didn't make sure that we got both a sectional and a chaise in rows 2, 3, and 4, the rest of these are false. So just a reminder for the notation, this would have been S or C, and this one would have been S and C with the V in the wedge. Now let's move on to this more complex version. So sorry, the couches are out. We're just doing straight abstract thought. When we have 3 simple statements and we have to make sure that we have all possible truth values, now there's going to be 8. So we're going to go 4 truths and 4 falses. And we can still alternate true, false, true, false. There's no correct order to do this as long as you get all 3. So I can have a true, true, true. I can have in the third row a true, true, false. In this third to last row here, I can have a false, false, true, or a false, 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 right? So you can think of it that way. It doesn't really matter. True, false, true, true, false, false. False, true, true, false, true, false. It's whatever way that you systematically can set it up to make sure that you get all possible truth values. That's fine. So now we're going to look at the statement A and B or C. So this means that if A is true, then either one of B or C is true. And so the way I'm going to look at that is I'm going to first digest the B or C statement, and that way I'll just whittle it down to kind of 2 comparisons. So let's do B or C first. And again, I'm looking for at least one of B or C being true. So I'm just looking here initially, and then we'll build it up to the final conditional statement. So again, I just need one of B or C to be true. So I can go through and I'm like, okay, well, both are true, so that's fine. C is true here, so that's fine. B is true here, so that's fine. None of them are true here in this fourth row. So that is a no, a false. In the fifth row, they're both true. Great. Similarly, sixth row, I have one true, as with the seventh. And then again, in the last eighth row, none of them are true, so that's going to be false. So that's how I come up with my B or C column here. And now what I'm going to do, now that I have B or C, I'm going to refocus my attention. I'm going to look at A, which is just this column here, and I'm going to compare it to B or C, which is here. So if I need an and statement for pink and blue, then I need to be true in the pink column and I need to be true in the blue column. So that's all I'm comparing. And that's the usefulness of setting up this previous column B or C, because now I can just compare two things. So in the first row, I see that A is true and that my B or C is also true. So remember, I need both pink and blue to be true in order to have a true value in my last column. So I had that. In my second row, pink is true, blue is true. I'm good. In my third row, pink is true, blue is true, so I'm good there too. But now in my fourth row, I have that pink is true, A, but my B or C column, my blue column, wasn't true. And remember, for the and statement, I need both to be true. That wasn't satisfied, so this gets a false. Similarly, moving down the line, I have a false true. They're not both true, so that gets a false. Another false true here. You get a false. And the last two rows, I don't have true trues, so I get false, false. So that's how you do a more complex truth table. So now it's getting a little bit even more complicated still. I'm going to wrap this guy in parentheses just for consistency and clarity. When I have three simple statements, A, B, and C, I again have to go through the rigmarole of getting all possible combinations for true and false. So I'll do the first four are true, the last four are false. Then I'll do true, false, true, false. So I can have a true, 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 and I can have a true, true, false. I can have a false, false, true, and I can have a false, false, false. Then I'll go true, false. I can do a true with that, and another true, false. That one has to be the opposite. False, true, true, false, true, false. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my B or C. Just like we did before, I'm going to compare only B or C. So just one of the B or the C's has to be true. They can both be true. They just can't both be false. So I'm going to get a true, true, true. They're both false. We said we can't do that. Okay, you get a false. Next, true, 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 and another time that they're both false. So no, we don't want that either. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the not B or C column. So for that, I'm going to use my B or C column. And I'm just going to flip everything. So if it's true, I write false. If it's false, I write true. Oh, and I realize there's a typo here in my table. So this needs to have the tilde here. So this needs to be A and not B or C. Okay. So again, from blue, just flipping the value. So true goes to false, true goes to false, true goes to false. So these are opposites. False goes to true, true goes to false, true goes to false, true goes to false, and false goes to true. So if you were to compare the blue column with the column to the right, you would see that they have the exact opposite truth values, which is what I wanted. Now I'm ready to assess the truth value of the statement given in the problem, A and not B or C. So that's what we have in our sixth column. And so I only really need to compare, we're going to let not B or C be blue. So that one was here. And we also are going to compare that to A, which is our first column. And the operator in the middle is and. So what I really need to make sure of is that I have a true in the pink column and a true in the blue column at the same time. So let's look at places where that happens. Not the first, second, third rows, but I do have a true here in the fourth row. So that's going to work. And I don't have any more trues left in A, so that's my only true for the blue column. Notice that in the first row, true, false. They're not both true. Another true, false. They're not both true. Another true, false. They're not both true. And you can do the same thing. We've got false, 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 true. Because I don't have two trues, I cannot write a true for that last column. So that's the idea of setting up a truth table. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. When we resume, we'll move into inductive and deductive arguments. So tune in for that video to get the end of the lecture.